Welcome back. Today we're going deep into Dopamine Detox by Thibaut Meurisse.
Yeah.
You've sent over some really interesting excerpts,
hmm
and it seems like you're ready to tackle the hold that dopamine might have on your life. We're going to unearth some golden nuggets about those tiny neurotransmitters and how they affect us daily.
Yeah.
Buckle up, because this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
We're about to discover how to reclaim your focus.
Most people think dopamine is all about pleasure, but the book digs deeper and highlights how it's more about that anticipation of a reward. It's the driving force that pushes us towards what we want, even if it's not necessarily good for us in the long run.
That makes so much sense. It's like when you see a notification pop up on your phone, it's not the notification itself that gives you pleasure.
Right.
It's the anticipation of what it could be. A message from a friend, a news update, or maybe even winning that online contest you entered. It's that little burst of what if that keeps us hooked.
Precisely. And here's the thing. Our modern world is practically overflowing with these dopamine triggers. Everywhere you look, there's something designed to grab your attention and keep you craving more. Social media feeds, news alerts, even those tempting online shopping recommendations, they're all playing on our dopamine system.
So we're kind of swimming in a sea of dopamine triggers.
Because-
No wonder it feels hard to focus sometimes.
And the book argues that this constant state of overstimulation can actually make it harder to find true satisfaction. We get caught in a cycle of wanting, getting a temporary hit of dopamine, and then wanting more. It's like we're always chasing the next hit without ever feeling truly content.
Okay, so that's the problem, but what's the solution? The book mentions this idea of a dopamine detox. Does that mean we have to completely cut out all sources of dopamine from our lives?
Not at all. A dopamine detox isn't about becoming some kind of pleasure-free robot. It's more about resetting your sensitivity to dopamine. Think of it like hitting the refresh button on your brain's reward system.
So instead of constantly chasing those dopamine highs, we're teaching our brains to appreciate the simpler things and find motivation in activities that might not have that immediate wow factor.
Precisely. And the beauty of it is this reset can make those tasks we usually dread, like cleaning the house, finishing that work project, or even just having a difficult conversation, feel less daunting. It's like taking off a heavy weight that's been holding you back from tackling those less glamorous but important parts of life.
That's actually really encouraging. The book outlines 3 different types of dopamine detoxes, Ray. Can you walk us through those?
Absolutely. The book describes a full 48-hour detox, a 24-hour detox, and what it calls a partial detox. The 48-hour detox is like hitting the reset button hard. You're essentially minimizing all sources of intense stimulation for 2 full days. This can be a powerful way to break free from ingrained patterns and experience a noticeable shift in your focus and energy levels.
Wow, 48 hours sounds intense. What about the 24-hour detox?
The 24-hour detox is a bit more manageable for those who might not be ready for a full 2-day disconnect. You're still significantly reducing your exposure to dopamine triggers, but it's a shorter, more concentrated period.
And then there's the partial detox. What does that entail?
This is where you focus on reducing specific dopamine triggers that you've identified as particularly problematic. It could be cutting back on social media use, limiting your intake of sugary foods, or finding alternative activities to replace those that tend to lead you down a dopamine rabbit hole. Even small changes can make a surprising difference over time.
So it's about finding what works best for your lifestyle and gradually working your way up to a level of detox that feels sustainable.
Exactly.
I like that approach.
The book isn't about deprivation or creating rigid rules. It's about empowering you to understand your relationship with dopamine and make conscious choices that lead to a more balanced and fulfilling life.
Okay, so we've talked about the problem of dopamine overload and the different types of detox, but how do we actually go about implementing a dopamine detox? The book mentions a 3-step method, right?
You got it. The book provides a really practical framework to make the detox successful. First, you need to identify your biggest distractions, those things that tend to pull you away from what you truly want to focus on.
It's about getting really honest with yourself about where you tend to get sidetracked. Are you constantly checking your phone for notifications? Do you find yourself mindlessly scrolling through social media feeds? Or maybe it's something else entirely, like constantly checking the news or refreshing your email inbox every 5 minutes.
The book actually includes some helpful self-reflection questions to guide you through this process. It encourages you to think about where you tend to lose track of time, what activities make you feel drained or unfulfilled afterward, and what you find yourself craving even when you know it's not serving you.
It's like becoming a detective of your own dopamine patterns. And once you've identified those dopamine traps, the next step is to add what the book calls friction. Friction. That sounds counterintuitive. Wouldn't we want to make things easier? Not harder.
It might seem that way, but bear with me. Adding friction essentially means making those undesirable activities less accessible. It's about creating a little bit of resistance so you're less likely to give in to those automatic impulses.
So instead of having your phone constantly within reach, maybe you put it in another room or turn off notifications while you're working, or if you're trying to cut back on social media, you log out of your accounts or even temporarily delete the apps from your phone.
Precisely. The book gives some great examples of how to add friction in different areas of your life. It could be as simple as unsubscribing from tempting email lists or moving that bag of chips to the back of the pantry so it's not staring you in the face every time you open the door.
It's like we're creating a little bit of space between the impulse and the action, giving ourselves a chance to make a more conscious choice. And that brings us to the third step, which focuses on the power of starting your day right. I'm all ears. What does the book suggest?
It emphasizes the importance of establishing a calming morning routine that sets the tone for a less stimulated and more focused day. Instead of immediately reaching for your phone or turning on the news, the book suggests engaging in activities that help you feel grounded and present.
So instead of starting the day with a barrage of information and stimulation, we're giving our brains a chance to wake up gently and ease into the day.
Exactly.
Think about things like meditation, gentle stretching, journaling, or even just sitting quietly with a cup of tea and enjoying the stillness. The key is to find activities that help you feel centered and avoid triggering those dopamine pathways first thing in the morning.
That's right.
And the book argues that this sets the stage for a more intentional and less reactive day. It's like we're creating a buffer zone between ourselves and the constant demands of the outside world. And that buffer zone is crucial for reclaiming our focus and rediscovering the joy of being present in the moment. This is already giving me so much to think about. I love how practical and actionable the book's advice is, but we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to uncover.
Right.
And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve into some even more fascinating concepts from the book. Stay tuned because we're going to explore the difference between closed systems and open systems and uncover how understanding these concepts can revolutionize your approach to productivity and focus.
We'll also discuss the book's insights on avoiding relapse and how to create sustainable habits that support a more balanced and fulfilling life.
Welcome back to our deep dive into dopamine detox. Last time we uncovered how those tiny dopamine neurotransmitters can really run the show, and how modern life throws a ton of triggers our way. We also learned about those different detox options, the 48-hour, the 24-hour, and the partial detox. Now, before we jump into some more fascinating concepts from the book, what stood out to you so far?
What really resonated with me is the idea that a dopamine detox isn't about deprivation. It's actually about reclaiming control and finding a healthier balance in a world designed to keep us constantly stimulated.
I agree. It's like we've been handed this rule book for our brains that we never knew existed. Now we're starting to understand how it all works and how to write our own rules.
That's a great way to put it. And one of the key concepts the book introduces to help us write those rules is the difference between closed systems and open systems.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are closed systems?
Think of a closed system as a focused environment with clear boundaries. It's like setting aside a dedicated time block to work on a specific task. With your phone tucked away and notifications silenced, you're essentially creating a container for your attention, minimizing distractions, and allowing yourself to get into a state of deep focus.
So it's like creating a bubble of concentration where you can fully immerse yourself in the task at hand.
Exactly. And the book argues that working within closed systems can significantly boost your productivity and creativity.
That makes sense. When you're constantly being bombarded with distractions, it's hard to get into that flow state where ideas really start to blossom.
Precisely. Now contrast that with what the book calls open systems.
What makes a system open?
Open systems are designed to keep us engaged, but in a scattered way. Think about your social media feed, your email inbox, or even just browsing the internet. These are environments where there's always something new to see, something else to click on. They're designed to keep you scrolling, refreshing, and constantly seeking the next hit of dopamine.
So open systems are kind of like those all-you-can-eat buffets of information. There's a lot to choose from, but you end up feeling bloated and unsatisfied afterwards.
That's a great analogy. And the book argues that constantly engaging with open systems can lead to a state of chronic distraction, making it harder to focus on what truly matters.
It's like our brains are being trained to crave novelty and instant gratification, rather than the deeper satisfaction that comes from focused effort and meaningful work.
Exactly. And that's why the book suggests starting your day with a closed system.
So instead of reaching for your phone first thing in the morning and diving into that open system of emails and notifications, you're suggesting we create a more intentional and focused start to the day.
Precisely. It can be as simple as spending the first hour of your day working on a specific project, writing in a journal, or engaging in a mindful activity like meditation. By starting with a closed system, you're setting the tone for a more focused and productive day.
I love that idea. It's like we're priming our brains for deep work instead of shallow distractions.
And speaking of distractions, the book doesn't shy away from the reality that relapses happen.
Let's be honest. We've all been there. You set these great intentions to focus, and then suddenly you find yourself 3 hours deep in a Wikipedia rabbit hole, wondering how you got there.
It happens to the best of us. But the book emphasizes that it's not about beating yourself up when this happens. It's about recognizing those patterns and understanding the underlying forces at play.
So instead of getting discouraged, we should view these relapses as opportunities to learn more about ourselves and our triggers.
Exactly. And one of the key insights the book offers is that the world is often designed to work against us in this regard.
Yeah, it's like our attention is this valuable commodity that everyone's trying to capture. From advertisers to social media algorithms, it's a constant battle for our focus.
Precisely. But the book encourages us to take back control by creating a contingency plan.
I love that idea. It's like anticipating those moments of weakness and having a strategy in place to navigate them.
Think about it this way. What are those specific triggers that tend to derail you? Is it checking your email first thing in the morning? Is it having your phone within reach while you're working? The book encourages you to visualize those scenarios and plan your response.
So instead of mindlessly giving in, we're taking control and saying, nope, not falling for that today.
That's the spirit. And the book stresses that this is about creating a sustainable system, not about striving for some unattainable state of perfect focus.
It's about those small, consistent habits that add up over time.
Exactly. And the book also talks about cultivating what it calls here and now neurotransmitters. These are things like endorphins, oxytocin, and serotonin, which are associated with feelings of calmness, connection, and contentment.
So it's about finding activities that ground us in the present moment and counteract the constant pull of dopamine-driven anticipation.
That's right. The book suggests activities like spending time in nature, listening to calming music, practicing gratitude, or engaging in meaningful conversations with loved ones.
So instead of constantly chasing the next dopamine hit, we're finding joy in the simple pleasures of being present and connected to the world around us.
Exactly. And the book even suggests embracing boredom as a way to reset your sensitivity to dopamine.
Now that's a challenge in today's world, but I can see how it would be beneficial.
The idea is to get comfortable with doing nothing, with just being present, without constantly seeking external stimulation. It's a way to train your mind to find contentment in the simplicity of the moment.
It's like we're giving our brains a chance to breathe and reset, instead of constantly bombarding them with information and stimulation.
Precisely. And by cultivating those here and now neurotransmitters, we're creating a more balanced and harmonious inner state.
This is all making so much sense. But before we wrap up, there's one more concept I'm curious to explore. The book mentions a 30-day challenge, right?
You got it. The book encourages readers to put these strategies into practice and stick with them for 30 days to really experience the benefits.
It's like committing to a month-long experiment in reclaiming your focus and rewiring your relationship with dopamine.
Exactly. And the book offers a ton of practical tips and tools to make that journey as smooth and successful as possible.
So we've explored some really powerful concepts from dopamine detox, understanding those dopamine triggers, the different types of detoxes, and the importance of creating closed systems to enhance focus. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what has resonated most with you from what we've discussed?
What stands out to me is the book's emphasis on mindfulness. It's not just about changing our behaviors. It's about shifting our mindset. It's about becoming more aware of those automatic impulses and making conscious choices that align with our values and goals.
I totally agree. It's like we're developing a deeper understanding of our own internal operating system. And that awareness gives us the power to make more intentional decisions.
Exactly. And one of the most powerful questions the book poses is this: what could you achieve if you reclaimed even a small portion of your day from those distractions?
That's a thought-provoking question. What if you could get back just 1 hour each day? What would you do with that extra time? Would you finally start that passion project you've been putting off? Would you invest more time in relationships that matter most? Or maybe you'd simply give yourself permission to unwind and recharge without the constant pull of technology and stimulation.
It's a powerful invitation to consider the opportunity cost of our constant distractions. What are we missing out on when our attention is fragmented and our minds are constantly pulled in different directions?
So, are you ready to take back control of your dopamine and rediscover the joy of focus? We encourage you to experiment with the strategies from Dopamine Detox and see what works best for you. Maybe it's starting with a 24-hour detox or simply committing to a screen-free morning routine.
The key is to find what helps you reset, recenter, and tap into that deep well of creativity and focus that resides within you.
Remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Every small step you take towards understanding your dopamine triggers and making more mindful choices is a victory.
And as you embark on this journey, keep in mind that you're not alone. We're all navigating this dopamine-driven world together, and by supporting each other and sharing our experiences, we can create a more balanced and fulfilling way of life.
Until next time, keep diving deep and remember, a more focused life is waiting